PushTalk. Today we're meeting up at 3:30. I have a round table full of people with me today. So to my, I looks like, are you on my left or right based on that screen? Who knows?
I think left.
Left. Look immediately to my left, my farthest left over there. Him. We have Shine. He's our social media supervisor. He's here with us today. And immediately to my left is also my partner, the CFO, James Henderson. Then right next to me, of course, my name is Sean Smith. I'm the CEO of Black Push. And then we also have immediately to my right, and I don't even know if we're live. Immediately to my right, we have Darren. So today, you guys, I pulled them into this conversation because we're going to talk about something that's kind of interesting and something that happens a lot. And I don't think we're live.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Sorry. Something that happens periodically and something that we get slammed on Facebook about a lot is about talking so much about black issues and things that are going on in the black community. So I kind of, I think that a lot of people just talk from straight up, oh, we are, and I'm screwing it up. Sorry. I think that a lot of people just talk from straight out ignorance, right? Definitely when you have people who are outside the race trying to tell you what goes on in your race. I don't know if they're the best ones to tell me how it feels to be black and pulled over by the police when you've never been black and pulled over by the police. So I wanted to get a few men, from screwing up my English today, a few men together who can kind of relate to that. And it's interesting because if you think about it, we have like almost 3 different generations here because James is the oldest one of us and born in the low 50s, mid 50s.
60s.
60s. Oh, wow. Yeah.
65.
Sean, you were born in the 70s,
Yeah.
right? So you're 40-something.
Yeah.
I was born in the 80s, and then we got a 2000s baby here, I think.
2000.
90s?
I'm a 90s kid.
Oh, he's a 90s kid. I'm give him his credit. I'm sorry. Well, I mean, it's kind of like 3 different generations per se, or 2 different generations. 4. So James, kind of kick off. I think your generation is totally different in the way that you guys experience racism. The way or even being black in America was different. Well, let's start off here. Is being black in America to you different than it was when you were growing up today, than when you were growing up?
Not really. And I say that because racism has always been. And although I grew up in Portland, Oregon, I've had my fair share of being called the N-word.
Mm-hmm.
And I can think of a couple people I had to put hands on them because of that. But therein lies the difference too. See, when I was a kid and I would lay hands on them for you calling me that, I didn't have to worry about you calling me that again, or anybody who knew about that situation, because they just didn't try anymore. But today, I see that although those who get away with calling you the N-word will sue you for putting hands on them. You know what I'm saying? So that there is, I think that is like one of the bigger differences. They just weren't trying to, when I was a kid, they would try to fight back. Right. Now they fight, to get into your pocket whether you got something or not, or at least to try to get you caught, locked up, if nothing else. And but one of the things that I noticed about 8, 9, 10 years ago, whenever while President Obama was president, the congressman called him a liar out loud. And from that point on, you saw people get more and more bold in what they said to people of color. And that's to me. So to me, that's when I started seeing more and more open racism, where before it was just kind of you couldn't say because you might get punched in the mouth. Now they say it, and then they want
throwing hands like that back during that time.
Oh yeah,
I heard you say punch in the mouth like 3 or 4 times now.
Well, because that's where it came. That was the part that offended.
Right.
So if you smash a kid in the mouth and he got braces, that's an ugly situation. I can tell you, it hurt too.
Right. But that's interesting that you would say that. It's no different, that you don't feel like it's different being black in America in 2021 versus when you were growing up in the 1950s?
In the 70s.
Yeah, the 50s, 60s, 70s. That's crazy.
Oh, no, not 650. I was born in 65. So,
I'm tripping.
So the 70s and 80s.
The 60s, 70s, and 80s, but still.
Yeah.
What about for you, Sean? You grew up in the 70s? I mean, you were born in the 70s.
Growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I don't think, because of the way social media was, we didn't have it really. It was like the media was, a couple channels, and if you didn't see it there, you really didn't hear it unless you heard the word of mouth. So, you didn't see killings on TV constantly, and then not only on TV, but on your phone. We didn't have, a phone was connected to a landline.
Right. Right. We
So-
don't have that anymore. Payphones.
I think the effect of seeing constant killing on every social device that you have definitely takes an effect on you at a certain rate. So it's an element of fear that you have. Every day you leave the house can be your last day, and it's like, you are raised to think if you grow up and do the right things, you should have a good life, and you shouldn't have to be in fear of dying by the hands of the law. I've been arrested on false arrest before, but even at that point, I wasn't in fear that I was going to be killed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that element has introduced a new psychological terror component that I feel like almost every black person has seen. Somebody get pulled over, and then I'm saying something like, "Get your wallet," and then you go for the wallet, and then you get shot, or put your hands up, and then you get shot. So it's kind of like you don't know. It's like, should I freeze? What should I do? You know what I mean? And it's like you only see so much of the situation, so you don't know exactly how this escalated. You just know on a constant basis you're seeing the same thing over and over. So I think that definitely is different from when I was growing up.
So do you feel like, from your perspective, do you feel like it's different? Like, do you feel like being black in America is different in 2021 than when you were growing up in the 70s and 80s?
I feel like it's different just because of that fact that you see that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, when I got arrested, I didn't even do anything, so I feel like that's the same. Like, I feel like sometimes you, as a black guy, you're walking around feeling like the boogeyman.
Right.
And it's like, I'm one of the nicest people you might meet. You know what I mean? I get along with everybody, but, I feel like all people have prejudices, preconceived notions about somebody that they don't know. But I went to, a mixed high school, and when you get to know people, pretty much people are the same. But before they actually get to know you, they might think something totally different because of their background. You know what I mean? But I don't know if it's totally different, but I just feel like that element of the fear factor that's been added because of social media and the constant showing of murders, and then once it's a murder, it's no justice. You know what I mean? So that's the other half of it. It's like, if something happened in a different part of the country, you might not hear about it when I was young. You only see local news.
Right.
But now that you see things from Ferguson, you see things in New York, you see things from Atlanta.
Real time, real quick too.
So many. And then people's reactions, it just makes it more real to you. Like, before, it was like you see somebody on TV, and it almost wasn't real because you didn't know these people, you couldn't touch them, and then it's only shown from what a news camera is going to allow. But now that you have social media and it's real people being the news, now you see what is really transpiring, and it's like, wow, that guy wasn't doing anything. He was actually doing exactly what they told him to do, and now he gets shot and killed, and then on top of that, there's nothing being done. And because of that, now you're living with that sitting on you. Like, for me, at a point, I stopped tuning into the news. Because it's just like, all I'm going to see is the same thing over and over and over. And how much of that you want to internalize just on your conscience, It's it's hard to deal with sometimes.
What about for you? Sorry, you, Darren.
Yes.
What about you? Like, what would you say? So, like, you come from a different generation. You're younger, 90s baby, right?
92.
92. Oh yeah, around the corner.
Yeah,
Not
golden
that much
era
younger.
hip hop.
No, so I mean, for you, like, we're probably in the same generation, right? So we grew up in a generation where we watched like Martin Luther King and stuff like that from video screens or from a VHS in the early part of the days. And we were like, dang, you know, that we don't know how that feels. But technology, as he said, has evolved so much. Like, we're seeing stuff like this now,
In
like
fast
real time.
speed. Yeah, real time.
What has been your experience being black in America? And when I asked you that, like, from the perspective of, do you feel like your race has somewhat kept you out of places that you should have been, could have been? Do you feel like you're treated differently when you're pulled over by police officers? Do you worry when a police officer pulls you over?
I think I worry just because, just like subconsciously, just being fed it so many times. But in reality, I'm not as worried because I just know how to like carry myself. It could happen to anyone. I get it. More so blacks in America, but I feel like I just carry myself in a very, I don't know, like relaxed manner. So I don't get intimidated. I've went through it in life and also with training through the military. Honestly, you kind of know how to react to certain things. If it does happen, though, it's just like one of those things. Like there was no training that was going to help you. Some of these situations, there's like, what was you going to do? There was nothing that was going to prepare you for this moment. If it was something like detrimental to happen.
So I want to bring up a story I know you've probably seen and all of us have seen. There was a black, was he a lieutenant or captain or something in the military, Marines? And he had gotten pulled over by the police, and they kept asking him to get out of the car. You remember
They pepper sprayed him.
They pepper sprayed him.
Like multiple times.
Multiple times. And he served in the military. And he kept saying, like, listen, I would get out of the car, but I'm just afraid. Like, I don't know what you guys are going to do. You served in the military.
Yes.
How did that make you feel? Like, as a person who served in the military, and not only as a person who served in the military, but as a black person who served in the military, like, did you feel any kind of way when that happened?
Well, my homies know how I am around the police, so but I'm not gonna go there. But I felt the way only because it was almost strange to see that he was that scared. Like, it didn't even feel comfortable to watch. Like, dang, like I can't even imagine being that scared. I'm just being for real. No, that's no shade to him or anything like that. I just couldn't imagine being that fearful that I didn't even want to pull my ID out or get out the car. I would, and I always tell people, if you just kind of I hate to say it, but if you go along with the steps, if something does happen, you do have some type of some laws in place, or you can take your own measures, but I'm not gonna go there. But you do have laws in place that that can help you through the situation. If they do something that's out of their protocol or their policy, you do have laws in order. Like, you can sue them, you can go through the steps. Yes, it's a little strenuous, or something might happen, but something could happen if you didn't get out of the car.
Right.
So I'm like, which chance do you take? You just kind of do whatever needs to be done on scene and handle in court.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you could have lost your life either way.
I remember when I first moved to Atlanta, to Metro Atlanta per se. I stayed in a certain community. I'm not going to say the community. Not throwing any shade to any particular county. And the development was a really nice development. And I could tell you probably like 2 to 3 times a week, I got pulled over, turned into my development, and it was like the police officer asking me. The first question they asked me was not for my ID, not for my license. The first question I would naturally ask was, why am I being pulled over? And they would ask me, whose car is this? Where are you coming from? And where are you going? And it was questions that for me didn't fit the purpose. And literally every single time I turned into my development. And I remember one particular time I was like, sir, you have my tag number on the back of the car. You could run it. And if you run my tag number, you'll see who the tag is attached to, and you also see where I stay. I stay like 2 blocks up the road. And I remember one particular night I was out like 1 o'clock in the morning in the same community, and I was going to get Taco Bell. I was hungry. I wanted some Taco Bell, and the police officer had pulled me over because I had made a legal turn, and he was like, "What's in the bag?" And I, quite naturally, somebody asks you like, "What's in something?" Your natural reaction is going to be, "Oh, let me show you," kind of deal. And I went reaching, within like seconds, his gun was out on me and said, "Don't move. Put your hands on your steering wheel." And it was a white police officer, and I'm like, and it was crazy to me how it went from like 0 to like 100 in seconds. And literally, like I did like you, like I followed the rules. I put my hand on the steering wheel. I said, "Sir, I'm sorry. I was just trying to reach to show you what was in the bag." He's like, "No, man, you can't be reaching for stuff while all this kind of stuff is going on." And I was just amazed, right? But at the end of the day, we ended up standing out there for like 20 minutes and holding a conversation, and we ended up becoming really cool. But it was the fact that, like you said, people already have preconceived notions, right? Everybody has a form of prejudice within them. I just find it interesting that we do get two different dynamics, right? Because we grew up in a generation where we per se didn't feel what they felt and seen what they seen and had to go through what they had to go through. And I can imagine if I had somebody here from my grandmother's generation, they would have a totally different experience of it. But the fact of the matter is that, in my personal opinion, I don't know how much we've progressed, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if we progressed or if systematically they just found other ways to be racist or for racism to exist. And not only just towards African Americans, I'm just saying in general.
In general, I think that they found other ways. So they went to school, college, went to high school, college, and graduated. We played football with or against them. They became, they went into the Marines, got out, became a police officer. Then went into law, went into politics and whatnot. Now they're lawmakers. But, growing up as a kid, you could just pick a random name. He was a jerk to most people, and he was a racist on top of everything else. Or a bigot, or whatever word you want to use. But that was that's just how he got down then. And now he's Johnny Lawmaker.
Right.
Exactly.
And he's an attorney. And so as far as he's concerned, as far as their people who think and believe like he does, they're, and then of course if they're part of the good old boy network, then they're bringing more of their own kind into the fold, the team of blue, if you will, or and just law enforcement altogether. And now you see your Fergusons, and you see your up in George Floyd issues and everything. All these different things that we've been seeing the officers shooting people of color, whether they were actually doing something or fleeing, just running, and getting shot in the back, and they're sitting in the car on the passenger side with their hands up, whatever the issue, whatever the case was. But somewhere along the line, someone said, shoot first, ask questions, you deal with the questions and the fallout later. We got your back.
Right.
And they and this is what they tell each other, because they're part of the team of blue. And that's not to knock. I got some very, very close friends and family members that are part of that team, but they are people of color. And so at the same time, the rules do not apply to them in the same manner, because they aren't able to go put their foot on somebody's neck or draw down on somebody who's white in the same manner and just start asking a bunch of questions. So a white officer can ask a white citizen, but a black officer can't. Not without some sort of repercussions.
I mean, when you see, like the guy that went to the church, shot people up, and then he gets taken to get food,
before he goes to jail.
And who does that?
Yeah.
But for like justice to not be served.
Right.
And then you see
the man who shot. Was it Ferguson? I think the guy who shot the people, then he went and put the gun. Like he went walking down the street with the gun in his hand.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And he walked right past the police, and he went home.
Yeah.
He stayed in the whole other state and went home.
Yeah.
And this is the part. This is what makes me so upset. Like I'm gonna read this, right? I'm not gonna say the person's name. There was a comment where me, Camille, and what's the
Taylor.
Is it Taylor?
You want to sit here?
No. The young lady who internships with us. Sorry. Taylor. Okay.
Yes.
See, that's why you have to have help.
Yes.
See?
Yes.
But listen, we did a podcast on Saturday, and we were talking about church, and we were talking about, like, do we feel like church is playing enough of a role in the issues that are going on in our country today? And she gave a very valid input from the perspective of somebody who was 20 years old. But somebody wrote this comment, right? It says, for literally decades, most black people have been brainwashed by Democrat politicians into believing that they are victims and therefore owed something. The problem is Democrat politicians talk a good game about helping them, but they never follow through and actually help the black people. Because Democratic politicians want the black people to stay poor. That's true for even black politicians. That's how the Democratic politicians control the black people. They don't give a damn about you until it's election day, and they when they need your vote. The inner city is the new black plantation, brought to you by the Democratic Party. By the way, a little history lesson. Democrats created the KKK. Look at all the major cities that have black populations. Who has been running those cities for decades? Democrat politicians. Have the lives of black people gotten better? No, but you keep voting for them. Black people need to wake up and stop voting for Democrat politicians that are all promise and no action. President Trump did more for blacks than Democrats have in the past 40 years. Truth, wake up. Listen, my problem with that is it's kind of like you're saying black people are too ignorant to know what's best for them. And I don't get how someone who stands outside of my race looks inside of my race and tell me how to think within my race. If that makes sense, right? It's kind of like me, and I had a friend the other day who was talking about her kids, and she was like, I hate the fact of having to do this with my children's father. And I gave my opinion, and she shut me down quick. She was like, you ain't got no kids. How are you going to give an opinion about what it feels like to raise kids or what it feels like to have to co-parent when you ain't got no kids? And in the moment, I'm like, I've raised my niece, my nephew. I've been around them all my life, my godsons. I know what it feels like, but I really don't. I don't know what it feels like to have to deal with another party when it comes to raising a child. We don't know how it feels to raise a child. You two have, right? So it would be disingenuous for me to give input in a situation in which I've never been through. And for me, it's like what aggravates me the most is that I try, and I'm just speaking for myself, I try to experience or want to experience what other people have to go through. Hence the reason why I wanted to do the whole farm tour. I've never farmed, right? I don't know what it feels like to be a white farmer. I don't. If a white farmer wants to invite me to their farm to come farm, I would do it because I want to know what the experience is like. But don't try to tell me how to live in my experience when you don't even want to think about or even try to put yourself in what I have to go through. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what it feels like to be pulled over by a cop. I got pulled over by a black cop today, right? And I still felt some kind of way. Like I still felt like a little bit on edge because of the fact that I understand that it's not just it's the institution itself that has gotten too big and has gotten too powerful. It's not a white cop, black cop thing. It's the institution itself, for me, I'm speaking for me, that has too much power and not enough oversight. It's the institution itself that brings tanks into the streets and push my people back, but at the same time, people are literally going into the Capitol building saying they're going to kill people in the Capitol, telling officers they're going to kill them. And yet, there's no military or there's no tanks put out on them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And until you've been there, and until you have to live with that daily reality that things that I do, if I was to have done that, it would be a totally different reaction. I don't think you have the right to tell me how to feel. That's just me.
Yeah.
I feel it.
It's hard to tell a victim how they should deal with victimization. You know what I mean? Like, if you've never had it happen to you, you really don't know how you're going to react in a situation. So it's kind of like, it's condescending to say, well, this is what I would have did, or this is what you should do. It's like, you can observe a situation and say, well, this is what you would do, but it's like watching a game on replay.
Right.
Instead of in live action. It's like, if you're on the floor you might act differently if it was you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's like 4 more after that.
And I kind of see where just to kind of play on whoever it is. I don't know who it is, but yeah, I think of it like as an experiment. If these are my these are the things, I'll say the things I'm experimenting on, and I know how I engineered them, then I do know how to bring them out because I've engineered them to be a certain way. So I can get what they would be saying if they said that, oh, this is what you should do. I know how you're acting only because I've made you act this way. Even in Carter G. Woodson's The Miseducation of a Negro, he says if you control their thinking, you don't have to worry about their actions. So if you know how to control somebody to make them do a certain thing, then you do know how to make them come out of a certain thing as well, I would think. But that's their thinking. I do believe people are born with just different not different intelligence, I guess some type of different intelligence, but just different ways of thinking, just due to their condition, nature, and nurture. So yeah, but I get what they're saying.
I would even go as far as to say, like, from the standpoint of that, right? You can have your opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
But don't tell me that I'm too stupid to know what's best for myself.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's almost like what they're saying, like, as black people, we're too stupid to know what's best for ourselves. Reality is this, and this is the stone cold reality. This is my opinion again.
I got you.
Is that we can have a black mayor, we can have a black police chief, we can have everybody in the city pro-black. It doesn't change the fact that over them are still policies that they still have to follow and guidelines they still have to follow. So don't try to make it seem like, oh, you got black people running your city, and look at how they, even when they're running your city, you guys are still no better off. No, it's not them that's the problem, because most of them, they go in there with their good intentions, but their hands are tied because there's so much they can do because there's policies that sits over them. Right. So when we talk about this today, or you always bring this up, you say racism is not like a black on white thing, it's a systematic thing, or per se, right? It's systematic. It's when they have engraved certain policies in place that limits my ability to be able to do or be free as I want to be, right? And so reality is that don't come at me and say, oh, well, you got black people in power and you still ain't getting nothing done. There's still policies in place. There's still things that, like we talked about all the time about, we got a new DA in the county we're in, right? And everybody's upset. He's saying, oh, well, he's not making enough change. He's not doing. There's still policies in place. His job is to enforce the law. If the law says this is what he can do, that's what he can do. Yeah. So it's not like he can change the law. We don't. This is America, right? We don't have a dictatorship. Yeah. Heck, I wish America was a dictatorship when Obama was president. I mean, because he could have done a lot more things, and I'm pretty sure he would have been a lot more radical. And then the other side would have been like, oh well, but vice versa. Could I say that? Okay, I'm happy. I would have been loved for it to be a dictatorship under Obama, but then
Trump. I already knew that was coming. I was like, ooh.
Gratefully, we do have a systems of check and balance in America, right? But at the same time, don't try to tell me that my people aren't doing enough for me when my people are still tied into policies that are not friendly to my race
and big money.
I mean,
corporations have big money.
You see, certain communities have, in comparison, killings that aren't to the level of what's in our communities, and they have laws legislated that this is a hate crime and this is not a hate crime. And it's like, well, what about the I don't know, X amount of millions or thousands that have been killed in this community? Why aren't these, treated the same? And honestly, I feel like a lot of it is just tied to money.
Absolutely.
So it's like voting blocks. These people have money in their community, so this will be addressed a certain way, and then you have nothing, so
you get the leftover table scraps.
Ignored.
I feel like he's about to say something.
And you get different vocab too.
Table scraps.
The vocabulary changes.
It's just like the way that they're presenting the same type of scenario is addressed in a different manner on the news or in the media, and it's like you got protesters versus looters.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The hood versus urban.
Yeah, like I mean,
right. For real, it's all a lot of
vocabulary.
It is vocab, or I call it legalese, because it's all in the wording and it's terminology in which is being used and everything. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna have two criminals, one black, one white, but the black one gets called a thug. So automatically, the white population thinks of him as being, or deems him to be worse off than the other criminal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You've seen pictures. He's a rapist, he's a killer, but the picture they put up of him is him in his prom suit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Smiling and cheesing. But
And
he just raped and killed a girl.
And then when Johnny the black dude,
Yeah,
got
he-
AK on his
Right, he
It's
all
been like, where did y'all find this picture?
Right, like he all lumped up like the boy didn't go to, like he didn't graduate from college.
It's very interesting too, right? I even look at I'll use an example.
Crazy.
Jeffrey Epstein, right? Jeffrey Epstein, we know, was charged with a very heinous crime, right?
Yes.
It was, but in the news, it was portrayed that, he's innocent until proven guilty, right? Even after he was indicted, we still have to go through the process, right? And let that have been a black man.
No, let that been Bill Cosby.
My point exactly.
Through the whole entire thing, and they messed up, and it was like,
But
crazy.
But even and I'm no way justifying
Endorsing
saying
or
that
nothing,
what he
yeah.
did was right or it was not worthy of what the punishment he got. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that fair has to be fair. Right.
Yeah.
What we do for one, we should not be able to do for the other. Right. I mean, Bill Cosby went through the dirt before he was even indicted of a crime.
Right.
And he beat the crime to begin with. Jeffrey Epstein didn't even go through the trial, per se. There's still debate about whether he killed himself or not. That's for them to figure out, right?
Yeah, they-
But I'm just saying, it's totally different. And even from a smaller standpoint, we ain't much got to go to celebrities. We deal with injustice every day. That's part of what we do. We deal with offenders every day. When I see a black man who's indicted, the process and the way he's looked at is totally different than when I see a white person who's indicted, and it's for the same crimes, right? And I'm not saying that again that it's per se. No, I'm gonna call it out. Like, it is what it is. Black people are treated differently in America, period. And that's not just from the black man. That's also the black woman. And it's crazy that when we have to sit down and hold a conversation with our kids, and the conversation is, listen, before you get out in this world, I don't want to talk to you about how to be successful in this world. I need to talk to you about how to survive in this world.
Yeah.
When that has to be our first conversation with our children, but yet in other households, they can go and say, hey, this is how you survive, this is how you budget your books, this is how you, when you go to college, you don't get in trouble. But our conversation has to be, hey, if you get pulled over by a police officer, make sure that your hands are 10 and 2. 2 and 2.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? It's different. And it's funny because I was watching this documentary of a co-ed family. So it's I think a white wife, black husband. And she was talking about she never understood when black people talked about the whole conversation until she had a black child.
Yeah.
And now she has to have the conversation
Right.
with her black child.
Without having the experience herself.
Without having experience. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But once again, it's one of those things where when you see it on TV, it's still not real to you unless it's in your face.
Until it's your experience.
Now, once
Right.
you're walking in those shoes, now it becomes, oh, this is a heinous crime that's been done to me.
Right.
Right.
A lot of times when you see
Yeah.
these people that are the victim, they're defending their whether they were a criminal or not, right? Well, I'm not saying for a particular case. If say you got pulled over and then you got shot, we've seen a couple of these cases where in the past he was pulled over for marijuana smoke, or he was pulled over, he got arrested for this and this time. But on this incident, he was totally innocent, and now they're going into the history of what he's done previously. And on the same accord, you got a kid walking on the street that has shot people, and he's being called a child. He's being let to go back to his state and walk right past the cops. And you're like,
Right.
well,
Go home.
If this is the case,
Took a
like,
shower and everything.
Yeah.
you would think that he should be apprehended and at least ask, what are you doing with this gun? If they have had a call for.
But let me ask you guys a question. This is for everybody at this table. And yes or no, do you think a black man could walk down the street with an AK-47 in his hand and nobody pull him over and say something to him?
I don't think at all. I mean, I just think that if you do, you're basically walking down the street with a target
On your back,
on
absolutely.
your face.
I saw this video
On your face.
on social media where they did that exact experiment, and I believe it was Arizona. But anyway, he had the AK. The white guy walked down, the officer drove by, slowed down, looked, kept right on driving. The black dude, 4 cars showed up. took the gun, laid him down, and handcuffed him, and then started asking questions. But guns were already drawn on him when they hopped out the vehicle.
Yeah, I seen that experiment.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. But they so when it comes to we talk about social injustices and the law being fair, and they say that justice is blind. No, it's not. Justice sees exactly what's going on and what it's doing, and we can do. Look, the truth of the matter is that you got a certain set of rules, or you got one set of rules that apply, that are supposed to be applied for everyone. Unfortunately, those who are doing the application part and putting it in play are doing it two different ways for the same crime.
Yeah.
But I would even say this too. Like I was, I don't know. It bothers me because of the fact that when we look at society, and when we think about even the thing that happened yesterday, one of the things that really bothered me about watching the whole segment where the police officers was giving a testimony to Congress is there was one black officer, huge black guy. He was on there crying, and he was saying, "I've never been called the N-word in my life." And that day I got called the N-word probably more times than I could even tell you, right? And all he was doing, he was serving, right? I mean, we can't even serve.
And these are the same people who are pro blue.
Pro blue.
But then when they get to a situation that they created, by the way, pro blue went right on out the window because everybody was a target at that point in time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I just think, this is just my opinion. I speak for Sean, right? And Sean gets enough, I get enough flap to where I can say whatever I want to say. And at this point, I really don't care anymore. Because you guys know, I have always been, very, borderline, do we go there? Do we not? Maybe stay away from it? No. But we can't. There's certain things that we can't do. There's certain things that my nephew can't do. There's certain things that my niece would never be able to do. And when I'm saying do, I'm not saying that they can't do it per se. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying if they do it, there's going to be different repercussions for them than there will be for somebody else, right? I mean, I can't, even there was a video one time of a young kid and his girlfriend, I guess, and they were pouring stuff down the sink. It was right here in Paulding County. And they were saying stuff like, oh, don't take care of the children. That's definitely a black person. Oh, never home with it. All this stuff, naming all these different things. Let a black child have gone and put a video up like that on YouTube. And yeah, they may have gotten some flat back about it, but it would have been totally different. You know what I'm saying? Probably, police probably been knocking at the door trying to investigate the family because there's something within some kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's just, and then too, I guess, ending this part of this dialogue for the day, a lot of people tell us too, I hear all the time, that black on black crime, right? And people say, well, how you gonna get mad at white people for killing a community when black people kill their own community, right? It doesn't justify. One isn't watching, and I say this to all my black people, we got to stop taking money and we got to stop killing our own people, period. I'm not saying this to go out and kill nobody else. Let's clarify that, right? For the record. I don't want the feds coming out. I'm not saying kill anybody. I don't care about this white person killing another white person, a black person killing another black person. I'm just saying, especially within our own community, there should not be as high of killings as we do have, right? And I speak out against that wholeheartedly. I don't care whether it's gang killing, whatever. And Sean got his mask on. He put it over his face. I don't care who it is, right? There shouldn't be killing our own community. But we got to stop taking talent and money out of our own community. And every single time we kill somebody in our own community, that's the talent we're losing in our community. I mean, I don't know what, everybody's talented, but there's something special about our race, right? There's something special about the way we do things, the way, gymnastics. Everything.
Swimming.
Track. Basketball, football.
Golf. Honestly, ice hockey. Everything you're right though, because every single sport that we used to, as a kid growing up, that I used to deem as a white sport, when black people have gotten into it, they really turned up and showed out.
Yeah.
Really have turned up and showed out. And before Tiger Woods, it was Calvin. Oh gosh, I wish I could think of his last name right now. But there was another brother who played extremely well, but he had a lot of things that was against him. Then there was a NASCAR driver real early, back in the 50s and 60s, who got into NASCAR driving. In fact, Richard Pryor played him in one of his movies. Portrayed this gentleman as well. And again, another movie I can't think of the name of it, but I remember seeing it. But the point is, even with all of that kind of success, at the end of the day, you still end up dealing with, there's still always a race issue. Even Finn, from the character Finn, when they did the Star Wars movie, there was fallout because Finn was a person of color, and people were up in arms about that.
Michael B. Jordan is trying to do Superman right now, and they're mad about that.
Really?
Shit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like.
Yeah, I'll go up for it.
Black
There
Panther.
you go.
Black Panther. I'll go for it.
But people.
I wouldn't want to.
I think the Kenyans wouldn't like that.
Nah, nobody's gonna like anybody besides Chadwick
the
Boseman.
Kenyans are already mad about Black Panther. They didn't like that movie coming out. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
the Kikuya. But that's a whole nother topic. Yeah.
But now, at the end of the day, man, as successful as we've been, there's still that just beneath the surface is racism that follows no matter where we go or how successful we are.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the courtroom, being an attorney, an officer, law, whether you're a business owner, the banks are still looking at you funny. If you got enough money to buy the entire block, but you still get redlined because you ain't your money is green, but it ain't green enough.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's still always that underlying portion. And yes, we do have to train our kids, but don't forget that we need to be training them how to invest, how to learn how to budget a checkbook and balance everything out. These things are just as important. And we get so caught up in, you have to be able to graduate high school and get a job and this, that, and the other thing, or go to college and get a job. But it's so much more than that, because not everyone is built for college. But if you're built to be a plumber or an electrician, fine, go for it. Let's go ahead and get you educated, and you can start your own business with that skill set.
Exactly.
But we have to teach that, because we're so busy trying to push everyone, be the first to get be the next person in the family to get the college education and degree. But the fact of the matter is, not everybody is going to be in college.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of us are going to end up in the military. And then some of us aren't going to be doing anything. So we have to, and all the while still have to deal with the underlying presence of prejudice.
Exactly.
On top of everything, over top of all that other stuff. So if we just if we continue to get caught up and focused on the one, we start missing out on the rest.
Right.
And I think a lot of us have missed out on the rest, and we're playing catch up now as parents, as grandparents. We're playing catch up now because we were focused on that one item, how to survive prejudice. But it has sidetracked a bunch of us as parents, as grandparents, in being able to raise our families in a way that they can be successful, whether in whatever field they choose to be in, and still teach them how to manage credit, how to handle finances, and still learn how to navigate the law.
Absolutely, I can see that.
I feel like many times as a black man, due to the lack of opportunities, you almost have to live 2 lifetimes in one. Like a lot of times in my community, like my father was like one of the only dads that was actually in the household when I was growing up to a certain point, and then my parents broke up. So it's like he was still in my life, but at the same time, you're learning about life from people in the streets, your own family examples, but it's like a lot of times we're still trying to learn just about things that in other households are there, and you get a total picture because you get a whole family there. But if you're like having to grow up in a single parent household, or you don't have like community centers with team activities, and how do you get along with this person? How do you have conflict resolution without something crazy happening? All of that stuff, in addition to trying to figure out how to make a living, how to learn about finances, how to learn about health, all of these things, and then in addition to that, not having the resources of other communities.
Right.
So, when they talk about black on black crime, I agree that we shouldn't be killing each other, but at the same time, I feel like crime is a proximity and resources thing.
Of the environment in which you grew up in.
Yeah, if you grew up in an environment where you had everything, most people aren't going to just run out and do something illegal because there's no point to. If you have other things that's occupying your time, like what's your talent, and you don't have to worry about food, clothing, and shelter, you're like, well, I'm going to focus on this. And then we see it in things like sports, where the playing ground is level, and people excel, and it's like they're held up to this great extent. But it's like, really, if the playing field was leveled in other areas, you probably have the same acceleration in people's achievements. And they say, oh well, your community does this and your community does that, but it's like we can look at examples of people doing bad, killings and all of this stuff, but if they had the same opportunities, then you probably wouldn't see as many of those things, just like you don't see it in these other communities that have resources. So, a lot of times when people just point to the crime, I'm like, well, how did these people get to this point?
Right.
Everybody has a backstory. And it's like our backstory is neglected to be looked at once something happens. It's just like we only want to focus on this, but they never look at like, how did this person get to this point?
Yeah, looking at the problem, not the issue.
It's like going to the doctor, like, well, you got this problem, but it's like you don't look at how did you get to now you got cirrhosis of the liver. Well, you've been drinking your whole life. If I've been dealing with criminal activity all around me, no guidance, you need good criminal element to have good criminals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you give me a good foundation, and I'll give you a good outcome.
Well, that being said, most of the people who were locked up, they just didn't have any good. They didn't have any good criminals around them.
No, I mean, and sometimes, but they say crime is bred through education and economics most of the time. So if you got low economics, low education, and most of the times crime is birthed, and that's even in white communities. So that's just how it is. Even 500 score communities, crime is higher. Even white, black, Asian, I don't care where it is. If you got within that 500 credit score community, those places are called red line, and it's more crime now, regardless of the color. So
I need to start looking at everybody credit in my community now.
Trust me, if they live in a better place, they credit ain't bad usually, more times than not.
No, but I mean, I would just say this as we go ready to end this, is that don't just think that because you can read something in a book or because you have heard people's story that you understand what they go through. Mm-hmm. And I think until it actually impacts you, or until it's in your face. You know how many times I've read about articles of a person who's a KKK member or a white racist, and then the child goes off and have a baby that's black, and all of a sudden that love for that grandchild just supersedes everything that they've ever had. So as people, if you really want to be great, if you really want to be awesome, if you really want to hold yourself to the account that what Jesus or what the Bible holds us up to, learn to experience it from somebody else's perspective. Learn to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, because the moment we stop trying to look at the world from somebody else's eyes, the only way we view the world is from our own perspective, and sometimes our own perspective is what got us in the situation that we're in today. So I mean, I encourage you to look at it from somebody else's perspective. So I know we're going to get some very positive feedback from this video today, from this podcast today. And I want to put it out. His name is Sean. I will give y'all his address and everything. So if you guys got problems, bro, come see him, okay? But I want to thank Sean. I want to thank Sean. I want to thank James. I want to thank Darren for you guys coming on today. I want to continue to remind people that August 13th we'll be at Tabernacle International Church, where we'll be having our One Accord conference that I'm super excited about. And also, too, if you guys have not gone on, I mean, I don't know if I should promote this, but if you guys have not gone on Amazon, just type in his name. Can you pull up your book just by your name? I don't want to
Darren
say
Lee?
the name of the book. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Darin.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you go to Amazon and you type in his name, Darren Darin, and his last name Lee. He not just works on social media. He actually has a book that he's written. So please go out and support him. Definitely go out and support him. I cannot say the title on this podcast, nor will I. But if you type in his name, you'll see the title. You'll see the book. And yes, it's a good read. It's a good read.
Yeah.
That's all I would say.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for
Special.
joining us. Thank you
Got a
guys for
signed
tuning
copy.
in. Yeah, I have my side copy too. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until tomorrow at 3:30, we'll see you guys again tomorrow. So I think
Wonderful.
you're gonna stop podcast.
What's the next topic?
Guys, peace.
He's out of here.
Let's see if I can get this right.
Stop streaming.